countdown is on, but you're not alone. This is Countdown to College, your weekly guide from Education Quest Foundation, here to help you plan, apply, and pay for college one step at a time. I'm your host, Gage, and joining us today on the podcast is Taylor Tucker, Director of the Career Studio and Student Employment at Midland University. Hi, Taylor. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Gage. Thank you for having me.
Now, Taylor, you and I both know that as much as college is both about, learning new things and growing and meeting new friends, it's also about preparing for your career after college. And one very important aspect of that is building a strong resume that will get your foot in the door and hopefully land you some interviews. But what if you've never made a resume before? Well, that's what Taylor and I are going to break down today. So, Taylor, let's start just pretty big picture. What is just the real purpose of a resume, especially for students who may be creating one for the first time?
Yeah, great question. A resume is a document. It is a document for you to tell a story. It is a document where you need to showcase a lot of relevant information, showcasing your skills, your experiences, accomplishments, involvement, to show that you're qualified for whatever positions that you are looking into. It really does highlight your unique value. It's a very important document that you'll keep for the rest of your life.
Yeah, we'll get into it more, I'm sure, towards the end of the podcast. But I heard someone, I actually used to work at a career services office when I was in college. It was great, great experience. Definitely go visit your career services office. But they described it to me almost as like a resume is like your story,
Yeah.
pretty much. And that's what really resonated with me. Um, just because I come from the theater world, and so I was like, I don't know anything about business, resumes, or anything. And so kind of hearing it framed in that way kind of cleared things up for me. But
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
when we're talking about resumes, what kind of information is typically included, and what do students often think they need to include, but they actually don't?
Great. Um, of course, it's going to have your contact information in ways it could be like, hey, this is who I am, a light introduction, and that varies per resume. Um, it definitely will highlight your experiences. That could be your job experiences, classroom projects. It also shows your education, what type of credentials or certificates that you have, a high school diploma, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and anything more than that. It's also important to show your accomplishments from high level grades, making at a college level a dean's list, scholarships, grants, but accomplishments could be anything that you want to show. What's really important also, it's going to showcase your skills. And you can showcase your skills throughout your resume, um, sometimes in words throughout your different experiences, but also you're showcasing your time management, your commitment, if you're putting on some of those accomplishments there. And students often think they may not need to include. We always think everything that's relevant, right? And so sometimes students think, well, that part-time job I had at the coffee shop, that's not relevant to being an engineer. It is. And so we always want to think, what's relevant? What skills did you gain? What knowledge did you learn? And how do we put that on your resume? Um, Receiving a scholarship, put it on your resume. Being a student athlete, being involved, put that on your resume. It doesn't just have to be job experiences listed on your resume.
Now, talking about just resumes in general, how have they changed over time? And what are kind of the things driving those changes, whether it be technology, employers, or just the way people are working today?
Absolutely. We may have some parents that are thinking, I used to have to print out my resume on resume paper, which we have high school students and college students that don't even realize there was ever a thing called resume paper, which is a very higher standard of paper. That's how we used to send out a resume. We used to send out resumes in using it with a stamp mail, lots of paper copies of resumes. We used to put our personal addresses on resumes. Where, of course, we evolved in a world where we can turn everything on through applicant tracking systems, which everything's all online. We've gotten away from you don't need your personal address anymore. We can get to places quickly. Um, More of a digital presence and really hounding in of the applicant tracking system, which is just a fancier word of like that's how companies and organizations take in their applications. Sometimes that can be built to help them read their resumes. We've also noticed this mindset of always good grades, right? That's so important, but not so much of emphasis around GPA. There's been more emphasis around your skills and your knowledge and how you can articulate your experiences and what you've learned away from high GPA. Of course, that's by preference. If you're still very proud of your high GPA, put it on your resume, but it's not so much impactful as much anymore.
And when you're reviewing resumes, Taylor, is there anything that kind of makes you think, oh, this is a good resume versus, some that maybe miss the mark a little bit?
Absolutely. The first thing I think of is it easy to read? Um, when at the college level, we think of recruiters, and those are the people that are really hounding for college graduates to work in their companies, and they're looking through hundreds of resumes. So they also prefer it to be easy to read. It needs to be easy to read. Format needs to be clean. At my level, I don't want to see the colors. Um, Black and white, not a lot of white spaces. I want it to be full pages. I want to see all the words. We want to use impactful verbs. Instead of the word helped, we want to use the word assisted, collaborated, anything like that. Those really hard, what we call powerful resume verbs. Um, when it comes to the experience piece, we want to see a result of the job that you did. So, what was the result of you making sure that your cashier had always the right amount of money in it? What was the purpose and result of welcoming people to the coffee shop? What type of environment were you creating? Um, I don't want to see the word hardworking, right? Everyone's work ethic is different, right? What you define, Gage, as hardworking may be a different way I see it.
Hmm.
And so different words and skills to explain that I am really hardworking. I'm willing to learn about a job, but really just wanted to tell a story. I want to get to know you quickly, efficiently, and really know like, oh, wow, you are really qualified for this job because of everything that you've talked about in this resume.
Yeah, I was definitely a student who fell into the trap of very colorful, very over-designed resume templates in the very beginning because I thought they looked cool, and I was like, actually, even I can't read this. So like, how
Yep,
am I going to expect an employer to read this? But
very true.
now, there is something different called an activities resume that students might hear about from time to time, especially when it comes to, college or like scholarship applications. So, how is that different from, a resume that you use for like a job or an internship search?
Yeah. In the higher education landscape, we kind of think of this as an extracurricular transcript. What is everything that you did outside of the classroom? How did you get involved? What types of activities were you a part of? So this is really showcasing your involvement outside of being a student, going to the class, kind of doing that typical go to class, do your homework. What else did you do? How did you develop well-rounded mindset? Um, Although I am a space in my mindset, put them together, right? That shows that you are a well-rounded person. That's what they will be hiring you for. They're open to teaching you how to task, but they're not going to teach you how to talk to people, how to work within a team. And so, yes, that activities resume is really important. I think connecting those with your job experience as well as everything you're involved in, put them together at some capacity, and that would be okay. And that's just recommendation. Get involved outside the classroom in high school and in college.
Yeah, it will unlock so many doors you didn't even know were there. Like you'll meet people that know other people through like extracurricular activities. It can even be when I went to college, there was a squirrel club for some reason. We just watched squirrels. But there was actually some people involved who maybe knew some people that had internships, that sort of thing. It's kind of a domino effect sometimes. So, yeah, I always tell students to get involved as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, let's say, Taylor, that maybe, some students had some part-time jobs in high school to save up some money, maybe they worked at like a smoothie shop, retail, something like that. And so what are some kind of like key differences between a resume for a part-time job in high school and then one that is used for full-time employment after college?
Absolutely. When you're in high school, it's really just a beginning, right? And it's okay to come out of high school without those part-time jobs. We might just want to think about experience being something else, right? Were you involved in any sports or any performing arts or any FBLA, anything that's club-wise, we can consider that experience as well too, because you are gaining a lot of knowledge and skills being involved. But let's think about it as like a beginning step. Your resume may not be super long, and we're going to hound in on the things that you are involved in. We're going to hound in on that one part-time job that you've had. And then when you get more throughout college, we want your resume to be full, right? So we might want to consider outside of any on-campus jobs, internships, right? Any type of experiential learning opportunities for our teacher, education majors. They're getting in the classroom. Those are called field-based hours. Put those on your resume. Nursing students doing clinicals, put those on your resume. Any clubs and organizations, accomplishments, certifications, put those on your resume. So we're building on them. Our resume comes in phases, and so we build on this is what we had from high school. It could just be really just a standardized list that might be half a page long or longer. And then as we proceed, we're adding some relevant coursework, especially depending on our field. Um, Projects, right? We're a marketing major. We want to showcase our portfolio. So let's put some really unique projects that you've had. We're just gonna think outside the box to get your resume a little bit more full and really gonna hound on these skills. We're developing skills all the time, still developing skills often. And moving that mindset of what skills do you want to show? Especially for college graduates, we want them to build a resume, but also making sure that their resume speaks to the jobs that they're applying for. So yes, we have to shift and cater and move around some things and rewrite a resume for those dream jobs that we will be applying for. And making sure that yes, we're relevant to this job and I do have the experience and I have to just reword a couple of things or well, I know I'm actually really good at public speaking. I just don't have that on my resume, but this role does require it. Put it on your resume. Fundraising. Students may not often think that fundraising is important from high school to college. Fundraising for clubs and organization, put it on your resume. So important. So important.
Yeah, I was again someone who, like we were talking about, like I did all this stuff and I was like, I don't know if I should really include this on my resume. And I went and stopped by the career services office and they're like, all this? Put it on your resume. What are you doing?
That's so true. And I love that. Like even different colleges and different career services are always like, put it on your resume.
Yes. Now, I heard you mention just a little bit page length, just a little bit, because I know that's actually something that a lot of people ask about. How long should a typical resume be? And especially at different stages, because like we talked about, it will be a different state like length when you're in high school, when you're in college, early career. What's that kind of look like?
Yeah. I think with resume, it really does come down to your preference and the story that you want to tell. But it is okay. In the past, we're like resume should only be a page. Whoa. I don't necessarily agree. And that's not what we're seeing in the world out there is don't miss out on relevant experiences. As you mentioned earlier, Gage, don't miss out on things because you just want to be closer to a page. Now, should your resume be 3 pages long and it's super wordy? Absolutely not. Right? So I think like high school, it really depends, but half a page to a page is okay. And then in college, a page to half a page. And I often work with students is this is actually 2.5 pages, and it's really wordy. We're gonna have to condense this down a little bit. So we're definitely beyond this whole limit of 1 page. But we don't want to bring into space where we're too wordy and we're 3 pages long. And so even at I'm working with some sophomores and juniors that have been working since 14 and so they've had 10 part-time jobs. So that point is like what's really relevant time, why if this job was almost 5, 6, 7 years ago, you didn't really get a lot of hours and you feel like you didn't gain a lot from it, let's eliminate it. We don't have to list everything on our
Hmm.
resume. As a professional, no, I don't have my first time high school job on my resume anymore because I've gained so much experiences. So it really comes down to a page and a half is okay as long as everything on there is timely and relevant. Do not leave anything out unless, that job you feel like, it wasn't impactful. I didn't really learn a lot. It was 7 years ago. We can start removing those things and shifting to what's really relevant for you. What story do you want to tell, or internships that you're really proud of, or involvement from the high school level clubs? Don't forget to highlight those as well.
Hmm. Now, Taylor, how important is formatting? We talked about just that a little bit earlier, about that readability. And what are some of the biggest formatting mistakes that you see students tend to make?
So it has to be easy to read. People are looking at resumes within a minute, right? And they are scanning them. And even we're seeing a large MRA increase of we're having our systems read it for us and saying, go find these resumes, and the system will do it. So it's picking out words, has to be easy to read. And what's going to pop out is once again, those action verbs. And format has to be simple, it has to be consistent. I always recommend to students, I don't see any white on a resume. I want it to be full. So that means at our level, not so much, maybe not so much high school, but it's full page long. It is full statements. It is from one side of the page to the other. We've noticed if we're using blocks and resumes and our eyes are going different places, it's hard to read. So it kind of just has to be streamlined from top to bottom. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't want to see a lot of color. We have the culture, we don't want to see different fonts. The pretty typical fonts that we use are going to be that. And that's when you don't want to pick out this random font that you do like, but is it going to be easy to read to others, right? It
Hmm.
really just has to tell a story. And, some students like, well, it doesn't show my uniqueness. It doesn't tell like how my personality. And a resume is not a place where you want to show that personality. You just want to show your unique story.
Hmm. Should students ever include a photo on their resume? I feel like that was maybe a trend a while ago. I don't really know what that looks like right now. Is that something to avoid? What are your thoughts?
Yes. For several reasons, I do recommend do not put your picture on your resume. For a lot of reasons, for safety, you are turning this into an online format. Personal address, your picture, you don't need to include it. We want them to pick you through your story that you're telling and get you on in different places during an interview. And that's when they get to see that value you bring and how you present yourself in that body language. Don't even put your picture on there. At that point, it doesn't really matter. And we do have students, in European countries that like that's kind of the culture. United States, no, we do
Mm.
not put your picture on it. But then you'll do a LinkedIn profile, which would be another podcast, right, Gage? That is where that you can put your professional headshot on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a whole nother beast. We'll
Yes.
tackle that eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah, yep.
All right, now we talked again about readability, about how, recruiters are a lot of times, there's so many resumes they have to look through, so they only have a minute sometimes to skim. So are resumes meant to be streamlined and skimmable, or is there ever a place for that kind of, paragraph style writing?
Yeah. We have seen that it's preferred that it's statements with bullet points. But I think it's okay to have an introduction or professional summary at the beginning of a resume, but it's not going to be 5 to 8 paragraphs long. Maybe maximum 5 sentences about this is who I am and this is what I bring to the table, which is a lot to say in 5 sentences. But once again, they don't want to spend 3 minutes reading a paragraph of what you did at a job. We want to make it full sentences, easy to read, and quick. Like I said, within a minute and two, they've got the information that they need. And because you told a really good story in a resume, you got the call.
All right, Taylor, before we wrap up, do you have just any final advice for resumes or just advice in general for high school seniors?
Yeah. High school seniors, it is all a skills economy. So get involved, um, learn a lot, whatever college choice that you jump into. Um, and just think about all the skills that you're gaining that teamwork, communication, leadership, all those skills. There's so many out there, but that's what they're looking for out there in the workforce, is skills, skills, skills. And then beyond
Mhm.
that is a world of competencies where you can showcase project management, career coaching, all of that as well. And when it comes to resumes, I mean, like I could talk about resumes all day long, which I told Gage earlier. So, resume is important. You'll have it for the rest of your life. And as sophomores or juniors, you can start developing a resume. It's very simple. And just think about what you're involved in and any part-time jobs you can add. And once again, you'll keep this for the rest of your career.
Okay. Well, that wraps us up. Thank you again, Taylor, for joining us.
Thanks, Gage.
And to our audience, if you ever need help with anything college related, you can contact an Education Quest office near you for free help. You can find our contact information or schedule an appointment on educationquest.org. While you are there, make sure you sign up for the weekly Countdown to College email that's filled with all sorts of college tips and tricks. And finally, just help us get this message out to as many students and families as possible by subscribing to this podcast on your favorite platform and hitting the like button on this episode. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.